Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to the Hearts Are Back to Ruining My Weekend podcast. Hey, we are back to normal. Usual business as resumed. Of course, I am referring to the result. That was on Saturday at Fir Park, where Hearts lost against Motherwell 2-0. So just straight in that is obviously going to be our main topic for this evening's podcast, and of course we are the Since I Was Young podcast, just to clarify that. But as always, your host joining you for this 30th episode of the Since I Was Young podcast is myself, Ewen Ramsey, and Alan Scrimger. Alan, how are you doing since that horrible result?
I'm a lot more calm and a lot more mellow than I was on Saturday evening.
Yeah, I genuinely didn't know how your mood was going to actually be in terms of when we last played that mob, because of course the emotions were just up and down. So I had no idea how you were going to be, mate.
Well, put it this way, we were planning to record this yesterday,
yes,
Monday, but for different reasons we weren't able to do that, and I'm actually quite happy that we weren't able to do that, because even up until yesterday I was still absolutely fuming. So
of course, well, it's nice that we have both a calm down, but as said, that is going to be our main topic. We're going to probably do things slightly more different because, of course, as viewers of the podcast, it's not something particularly that we know that you will want to hear us going through bit by bit on how we lost the actual game. So instead, what we're going to do is that we're going to have a quick run through of events, and then we're going to actually talk about in the sense of how we think needs to change in actually going forward, and some of the more sort of noticeable events of the actual game as well. And there's also some things, me personally, that I've been seeing throughout Twitter as well, which I would like to talk about as well. Some things that may be a bit of a debate, so we're going to throw them out there as well. And of course, we will dive into Alan's usual news segment. We've got a few updates on a few the players, both regarding contracts as well, both John Sutter and Alex Cochrane. So Alan will bring you that in due course. But as always, before we start off, guys, if you are a fan of the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian news, chats and reviews, please think about subscribing and smash that like button. As always, we really appreciate it, guys. And as always, on screen, if you want to get in contact via our socials as well, you can. We are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, all at SIWY Pod. And if you want to get in contact with us as well, through our email address, it is on screen, since I was young 1874@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to get in contact with either myself or Alan, you can. Both of our links for our Twitter pages will be in the description. So Alan, as I have just said, you've got a bit of an update for the long debacle that is John Sutter. So what is the update on that one, my man?
So there was an article put out, and Robbie gave an interview. I'm not sure if it was in the build up to the Motherwell game. I assume so.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably asked about Sutter, considering how amazing Sutter was for Scotland.
Which he was, yeah, absolutely,
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And obviously, this is the first podcast that we'll have done since that game.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he was absolutely outstanding for Scotland. So of course, that's going to make people ask questions about him.
Of course.
Robbie made a point, and he said he is basically encouraging the board not to be priced out of a contract. Those were the words that he used. We don't want to be priced out of a contract for him. And he basically said he's a big player, he's an important player. I'd love to have him long term. So Robbie is fully nailing his flag to the mast and saying, please try and keep this player beyond January.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, Laurie was on this with us last week, and we had a conversation about John Sutter and the whole situation with the contract and things like that. When I read the article and when I read Robbie's quotes, I thought, okay, that's quite interesting that he's coming out and saying that publicly.
It's quite a huge thing to actually say, you know what I mean?
Oh, massively. And I think it's one of those, Robbie Neilson is the manager of the team. He's the head coach or whatever you want to call him. he will see it from a footballing point of view.
Of course.
Laurie and ourselves, we touched on it last week that, you know, there's two schools of thought on it. You're either on the business side or on the footballing side. And I think Robbie has firmly, quite rightly, put his stock on the footballing side, because he wants to work with John Souttar going forward. He doesn't want to have to, you know, chop and change and get somebody else. But the very fact that Robbie's saying these things makes me think that the board and Joe Savage and, you know, that side of the team are taking the more business approach in terms of John Souttar being an asset now that's worth something now, but at the end of the season won't be worth anything. So we'll see. We'll wait and see how it goes. But as I say, I don't want to, you know, go over old ground, because we've spoken about this for weeks and weeks and weeks. But no, it was just interesting because it's kind of the first time that Robbie's come out and acknowledged, you know, the John Souttar question. But of course, he's going to get asked after, as I say, after his heroics for Scotland. So
definitely, man.
It'll be interesting. But yeah, as I say, if you want to hear our comments and our thoughts on it, listen to last week.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I will leave the link in the description if you want to hear that interview with the Hearts TV commentator and around the scarves. Scarves around the funnel. Mixed up there. We will leave the link in the description for that interview that we did last week with Laurie. And just lastly on the news segment, mate, our dark horse, Alex Cochrane. There's obviously been some interest from us as well regarding his role at Hearts. Of course, his contract at Brighton is up at the end of the season as well. So what have you heard on that one, my man?
Well, it seems to be that there's interest from Hearts on signing him permanently, which I think makes sense. I think it's one of those signings. I remember when we signed him, I think I was on a train and I think I messaged you being like, we've signed some left back from Brighton.
Yeah,
I hadn't heard of before, and
I'm pretty sure like I text you back saying, "Oh, Halliday's going to be fucked off."
But that's it. It's one of those signings that when he came in, it was a totally underwhelming one, and nobody really thought much about it. They were just like, "All right, okay, you know, that's fine," sort of thing. Yeah. But he's grown into a big part of this team, and a very important part of that team, and he's really kind of made that left back position or left wing back position his own. So. It makes sense that obviously the club are very happy with him. Robbie is very happy with him. And they were saying that they would be keen to keep him permanently. But it depends on what Brighton's plans are for him, because obviously that's his parent club. They might have an option to extend his contract. They might want to loan him out to somewhere else in England, or, you know, I think it kind of rests with Brighton, which it would do anyway. But it's nice to hear that we're making it public that, we'd like to keep you, you know. And I think, I mean, I don't know, because obviously, you know, I don't have any personal connections to Alex Cochrane, but he appears to be enjoying himself. And I said the same about Taylor Moore. He appears to be enjoying himself. He's playing every week. And I think Robbie sort of said something along the lines of that, you know, if he stays here, he's going to get played every week. Whereas if he goes back to Brighton, okay, it's the Premier League. You know, Brighton are doing very well in the Premier League at the moment.
They are.
As well. So, you know, there's pros and cons to both. I think the best place for him to develop would be to stay with Hearts, but then I'm going to say that because I'm biased. But yeah, he's really, as I say, he's grown into a very important part of this team. So for us to go out publicly and say we'd be keen on it is important.
Yeah.
And just last of all, in the same article, Robbie said that the club is working quietly behind the scenes on player contracts. Which is good.
Yeah.
Stop short of saying who it was for, but yeah, I think there's got to be work ongoing. Yeah. We're at that part now where it's like, right, you know, December's not that far away, then January's not that far away. So.
Yeah, January is going to be a very scary month, I think, for all sort of things concerned. Like, you know, because like you said, and most like sort of notably what Laurie said as well, that I didn't even take to account as well, like, you know, it was just like, you know, with like, for example, with Craig, like sort of Gordon, like sort of doing extremely well for a man at his age as well. For me personally, like you automatically think that no one's going to want to buy or give a contract to like a 39-year-old, but on the form that he's on now, and as soon as he put that thought out there, I was like, Oh shit, yeah, that could actually happen.
Yeah,
You know
well,
what I mean?
this is the thing, and I think we saw recently as well. Hibs have offered a few contracts to key players that they have. I think Deutsch signed a new one. I think Hanlon and Stevenson potentially. I could be wrong, but they're Hibs. But yeah, so it's important that you tie down the assets that you have. And
Yeah.
obviously, Craig Gordon is a massive asset to this team. So yeah, the sooner that these get done, the better. But we'll, I don't think we'll be far away from some news, hopefully.
Let's hope, Alan. Well, as always, we will keep you updated on any future podcasts and any new info that we have regarding contract. But for now, Alan, thank you very much for your news segment, and news it as always appreciated, mate. So we dive into the carnage and the shite that was from Saturday's game at Fir Park, which Hearts lost to Motherwell 2-0. As I said at the start as well, we're not going to do our usual like sort of the going through the events that unfolded. Alan's kindly said that he will do just a quick rundown of the game, and then we'll dive into what things that went wrong, what things we think personally the team can do to change, and like I said as well, it's like, some things that I've read on Twitter as well, and most likely from yourself as well, Alan, things just to kind of throw it out there. So yeah, we can start off with what happened. So Alan, take us through it. Don't take too long, because my ears, like, even from watching a game that I know that we lost, it was just painful enough. So please, run us down the events, my man.
Okay, well, I'll start briefly just with the team selection that he put out, that Robbie started the game with. He opted to restore Michael Smith to the lineup, back in at right back. Taylor Moore, however, not dropped. Taylor Moore shifted into centre back alongside Suter and Kingsley at the expense of Craig Halkett, which I'm sure we'll have opinions on as we progress, but wasn't on the bench, as far as I'm aware. But it's an interesting one because, just quickly before I dive into the rest of it, Robbie Neilson had said during the week he had a fully fit squad to pick from. So I can only assume that Halkett's maybe picked up a little knock in the build up to the game. I didn't read anything. I had a look, but I couldn't find anything. And maybe he's just been dropped. I don't know.
I did look at something, well, sort of like I did come across something on the evening news earlier that I think it was injury related. So I'm going to assume that it is that. And I think you are right on that one, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine so, because I think he's not really done anything recently that would warrant him being dropped. But yeah, Michael Smith came back in, played at right back, as I say. The front three, which was a discussion that we had previously, remained the same as it did against Dundee United. He opted to bench Liam Boyce and stuck with Mackay, Woodburn and Ginnelly. Again, as we said last week, why would you change that? Because they did incredibly well against Dundee United. I felt like Boyce wasn't going to start. I wouldn't have started him, but there was a part of me that wouldn't have been surprised if Robbie had put him back in. So when I saw that the front three was the same as previous game, I was happy, but also thinking, okay, it's a bit of a gamble, which ultimately didn't pay off. But yeah, so then obviously team selection out the window. That's that's all done and dusted. Game kicks off. Motherwell, right from the start, played with an intensity that we just couldn't quite match for whatever reason. Robbie said after the game something along the lines of, we had chances in the first half. I don't really know what game he was watching, because I don't really recall a moment where we had any sort of control of the game at all. Right. First real major event was the Motherwell goal. The first Motherwell goal after 20 minutes, I want to say 23 minutes, I think it was. Let me just double check. Yeah, so the first Motherwell goal after 23 minutes. They won the ball back after we gave it away. And they just came forward in numbers and we couldn't cope with them. Cross came in, first shot was blocked. I think the first shot might have been from Tony Watt. I'm not 100% on that, but it wouldn't surprise me because he had a very good game. Then it fell to Connor Shields. Comfortable finish. Gordon couldn't really do anything about it because he'd already gone the other way, anticipating the blocked shot would have been the one he'd have to save, but obviously it was blocked, so he was kind of out the way. Relatively comfortable finish. The frustrating part for me is being overrun in midfield and losing the ball. And we made it easy. It's another cross into the box, which again we'll touch on later, I'm sure. But yeah, just a very, very poor goal to give away. But Motherwell, to be fair, deserved it. I'm not going to say that it was against the run of play, because it absolutely wasn't.
No.
So yeah, that was a frustrating point to begin the game with after 20 odd minutes.
Yeah.
Then obviously Taylor Moore gets booked. And I'm sure we'll dive more into that later. Then the next big event in the game was the Taylor Moore second yellow card.
Yeah, that's something we will come on to.
So
I've got separate opinions on that, but yeah.
Yeah, so he made a challenge. I thought it was a soft one, but again, we'll speak more about that after. 65 minutes in, gets sent off. Then from the resulting free kick, the second goal went in. Another ball into the box, another set piece, another crossed ball that we didn't deal with. And the ball is put away by Lammy. 66 minutes gone. And at that point, game's done as far as I'm concerned. Robbie made some changes, brought on Boyce and Nandule as the game was progressing, but yeah, the game was away by that point, and it could have been further away if it hadn't been for Craig Gordon making a ridiculous double save again. I feel like he makes these every week. He was unbelievable. The first one, I think both of them were from sort of point blank range. First one headed at him, second one was a shot, and he just managed to get them both away, which was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It was brilliant, wasn't it?
As I say, without Craig Gordon, we could have and probably should have lost this game about 4 or 5-0. As much as it pains me to say it after our result against them at Tynecastle, I will give Motherwell credit for how they played the game.
No, absolutely.
They can sing as many songs as they like this week, because they won the game fair and square and they deserved it. So I've got no complaints on that one, unfortunately. I'll let them sing this week. Well, and just in case there's any Motherwell fans still listening, I feel like I have to give them some credit.
No, that's true, Bob.
They played it well, we didn't. So
yeah, that's what it falls down to.
Yeah, and then the game just sort of petered out, and we had I think we had one chance where Nandule headed it into Boyce, and Boyce hit it straight at the keeper. Ben Woodburn had a shot as well that was straight at the keeper. So I think we only had like 1 or 2 shots on target. I think those are the only 2 that I can certainly remember anyway. And that in itself tells you everything that you really need to know about the game as a whole.
Lovely. And I never want to hear about it again. But thank you very much for actually doing that, man, because I could not bring myself to actually do it.
I had to watch it twice. I had to watch 90 minutes twice to remind myself of what happened. Plus, I watched it at the time when the game was on. So
bless your heart. Are you look all right? Like, seriously?
I'm clearly just a glutton for punishment, to be honest.
Well, on that note, man, I'm going to kind of throw the first question your way, and we can kind of dive in from it now. Again, it was something that I saw floating about on Twitter. Now, of course, with the setup that we've got just now, I think there's not really an argument to suggest that when we play this system at home, the team tends to be fairly comfortable. We don't tend to have a lot of problems. But when it comes to playing away from home, the system doesn't really adapt as well as compared to when we're playing at home. So my question is that do you think we need to kind of refine the system that we're playing now for when we do play away from home, or do you think we need to kind of chop it down and kind of start from scratch in terms of a new system to specifically play away from home?
I think it's a really interesting one, because I think you can look at the away games that we've played this season so far, and recently our away record has been average at best. But saying that, we've never been that great away from home anyway. Yeah. So this dates back to even before Robbie. Like, our away record over the last, I'd love to know what our away record is, discounting the championship season, because that was a non-event that didn't happen. But going back to like when we with our record in the Premier League being away from home, we're not that good away from home anyway. And
No.
Robbie himself has said that, that we need to fix our away record. And obviously, the way the season started, you're going, okay, we're winning games. This is great. We're away from home. We've won. But the St Johnstone game, I think, is probably the one game that we've played away from home that I've come away from going, we should have won that.
Yeah.
The Ross County as well, perhaps. But they were still scrappy games.
Yeah.
We lost away to Aberdeen. We lost away to Motherwell. And in those two games, we didn't even look like getting anything.
No.
So
absolutely not.
When you ask, do you change the system or do you rip it up and start again? I think it's a really difficult one, because I think the system he played, the 3-4-3 away, he played it against St Johnstone and we should have won that game. He played it against Ross County and we should have won that game. Played it against Aberdeen, didn't deserve anything. Played it against Motherwell, didn't deserve anything. So you kind of have to, I think you have to look at it from a game by game basis. And I think this system will work against some teams, but against others, it clearly won't. And we've seen that, in the Aberdeen game, I think they put Scott Brown, they started Scott Brown in defence and then they moved him into midfield and they outnumbered our midfielders. And Motherwell did exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. They had more players in the middle of the park. And we, obviously, Benny and Devlin have played virtually every game. I think Benny Binningham's probably played every single game, 90 minutes of every single game since he's been in. And I took a bit of flack on Twitter as well, which I'll go into in a little while. But I think there needs to be alternative plans. And that, for me, is the worry right now, because Robbie doesn't seem to have an alternative plan. And I say that because I look at it and I think it was so obvious at halftime, he's got to change something. He's got to put another man in that midfield. Bring on Haring or bring on McKenna, do something. Or even bring on Boyce at halftime. Give Motherwell something else to think about. But he didn't. And the system, I don't think the system's the problem. I think it can be improved. I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying switch to a back four away from home. And I wouldn't be against that. But I'm also one of, the 3-4-3 system does work. It just needs to be used at the right time.
Yes.
If that means you play a four at the back away from home, play a back four. Play a 4-3-3, like we did in the Championship. Play a 4-3-3, and that might work. But the biggest issue that I'll say about the Motherwell game is that they, and I put this in my notes, that they basically overran our midfield. And the 3-4-3 system, I've said it for weeks, one of the most important aspects of the 3-4-3 is the wing backs on either side, because that's where your width comes from. Motherwell pushed Alex Cochrane back. Every time he was on the ball, they had 2 or 3 players at him. Same on the other side with Michael Smith. They pushed those full-backs back. So we ended up having like 5 men at the back. And when you've got that many players at the back, there's no out ball. There's no way we could get the ball out. So it resulted in us playing it long and lumping it up the park, which was just never going to work.
So you're saying more in the sense that it's not really the system as such that you have like a concern with. It's just more like maybe the personnel to bring on and off at the certain times, or?
I think it's more a case of you have to look at what the opponent's doing.
Yeah, because because I'm sure that you can agree, when you're at home, me personally, I don't think you should change your system to the team that you're actually sort of up against, because you personally shouldn't have to change how you actually play when you're at home. I apply in some contents that you shouldn't do that away from home. However, you're going to another team's ground, so of course they're going to mentally have the upper hand. So of course you've got to make some sort of change in if that may be in the tactics or the personnel as well. But I don't think you really need to change it. But you are right in the sense that when it did get to halftime, look, you're spot on that something had to change. And I think, I'm not saying that that's been an inconsistency of Robbie. I just think, when you've got 5,000 fans there and when you've got fans watching it on the TV, much like ourselves, when it's clear as day that the fans can see it, like, and he, like, that's, it's not something that I dislike about Robbie, but it's something that can annoy me, like, at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think the thing is, like I said earlier about what Robbie said after the game, I've just looked it up, and the quote was that he said after the match was, well, this is off the BBC website. He says, "We didn't get to the levels we've played at recently. In the first half, we probably had the better of the chances, but it was one of those games when the ball wasn't in play a lot. It was a stop-start, and when it's like that, you've got to take your chances." Now, I agree with them to an extent. I do agree with them to an extent, because if, it was a stop-start kind of game, but that's because Motherwell played it like that. And I know what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. I think it's a case of he needs to be more reactive. I think, Motherwell and Aberdeen, Pittodrie and Fir Park, they're no mugs, they're good at home. And I think we need to get off this mentality of we can just turn up with our 3-4-3 system because nobody else plays like that and it'll be fine and it'll work. It will work in certain games, but it doesn't always work. And against Motherwell is another one of those games where it didn't work. So my issue going forward is, does it become too predictable? Our opposition manager is going to look at that game and go, that's how you stop Hearts from playing. That's what we'll do when they come and play us. It's, you've got to learn. And Robbie, managerial wise, Robbie's still quite a young manager. He has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But he is still a young manager. But you also have to look at that and go, against Aberdeen, he was caught out tactically by Stephen Glass. And he's been caught out tactically by Motherwell as well. And he'll have gone home and watched it and analysed it and looked at what we did well and what we did wrong. And it is what it is. That's what managers do. But I just feel like maybe a change of system in certain games might not be a bad thing. But I'm not saying that we need to rip it up and start all over again, because I think that would be not the way to go about it. But just having an alternative plan would be the best option.
Yeah, because you're right in the sense that, like, I don't think in these sort of certain games, like, I don't think Robbie tends to have a plan B, in the sense that, like, when we're, for example, when we are ahead in a game, he does have a plan to kind of see it out, in the sense that we tend to revert back to a 4 at the back, like, to throw in an extra mid to bolster that, like, sort of back line as well. But in terms of trying to react and get back into a game, I've not kind of seen that yet. Like, I don't think there's been a game where we've been, like, if the opposition team has scored first, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's been a game where if the other team has scored first and then we've actually managed to get in front from that. I don't think there's been a game since then.
Nothing jumps out at me.
No,
there probably is, and we're probably lots of people.
Aye.
The comments are probably going to go nuts.
Please just throw it at me. But off the top of my head,
I
don't think there has been as such. So I think in terms of trying to get players back on track and trying to have a reaction to the games, like, maybe that's something he needs to take into consideration. But just while we're on the topic of Robbie, now, we've said many a time that we do the podcast because we like to express our like opinions, and everyone's like opinions is their own. So I'm saying this as from my personal view, and because I'll be honest, I found it absolute fucking nonsense. So I went through like a couple. I'm not going to say who, because I don't want that to like sort of go back at them. But there was quite a few ones where, like, where fans were ranting like about the result, and which is absolutely fair, like, of course. But a lot of these sort of tweets were saying that Robbie should be sacked. Now, I'm saying this from my own personal opinion, that is a crock of shit. I'm sorry. Again, I think there's still certain Hearts fans out there that are just kind of maybe not wanting Robbie to make a mistake, but kind of waiting for it in the sense so that they can jump on him just from some of the performances from the championship as well. And to be honest, I think if anybody else was in that dugout, playing now 14 games, won 6, drawn 6, and lost 2, can you complain about that? Can you complain about that? Because I don't, honestly.
No, but I think, and like you say, there is that, but there will always, it's a small number. Let's be clear. It's a very small number. There's a Twitter user whose handle's just gone completely out of my head, but every week he does a poll, Nielsen in, Nielsen out. Every single week, you can vote one way or the other.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's been all season long, it's been Nielsen in, 97%, Nielsen out, 3%, whatever. And that's, I think you've got to look at it, and we've got to be a bit realistic. We said this again last week when Laurie was on about being realistic and understanding the expectations of Hearts. I wrote it in the matchday programme for the Dundee game that the one concern I had was that we take our eye off the ball and we slip down towards the 4th and 5th teams. And listen, I want us to chase Celtic and Rangers all season. I want us to finish 3rd. I would love that. But I think in recent weeks, we've perhaps maybe been a victim of our own success and started thinking, right, we're 3rd. This is great. Meanwhile, Dundee United have caught up with us. Hibs, off the back of a semi-final win and a cup final appearance to come, they'll probably get a bounce out of that. So it could be a very, very interesting few weeks. And we've got obviously St Mirren at home next, then we've got Celtic away, then we've got Rangers not too far away as well. So there's some big games coming up. And this is why I worry about it. But equally, we could say it all day. Robbie Nielsen has got us back in the Premier League, which is where we should have been. We're 3rd in the Premier League. And if anybody has complaints about that, then you know what? Let them complain about it. And if people want him sacked, they want him sacked. And you're never going to change people's opinions. There's people out there that just don't like Robbie Nielsen. In the same way, there's people out there that don't like Anne Budge. It is what it is. And people are going to have their opinions, as you say, which they're more than entitled to.
No. Of course.
I'm not calling them out and saying it's wrong. People can have their opinions and say what they think. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. But, this is why we sit here and have a rant every week, because we have opinions too.
Absolutely.
But I think Robbie quite rightly needs to take some of the flack for against Motherwell. I think he got it wrong.
He did. No. Absolutely, yeah.
We have been very positive about Robbie Nielsen and praising him when he's got it right this season, and his substitutions and everything like that he's got right. So it's only fair that when he gets something wrong, he does get called out for that.
Which is again as well, to kind of sort of balance that out as well. Again, I don't like, and I'm not just saying it for Robbie in general, but again, I know that for any job in let's say for example, when a company is not doing well, even if in general it falls down to the staff not working well, it falls down on the main the person that's in charge. But in a football sort of context, in today's world of football, the players don't take as much of the flack as they should. And I'm going to say right up front, as well, just from Saturday's game, I'm going to take out Craig Gordon, not for the fact that that he played amazingly well, but again, there's only so much he can do in terms of changing a game. But there wasn't one player out there who I thought played well. I genuinely didn't think that there was a player that was trying to match the intensity, as you said, that Motherwell had shown. And I'm not gonna say like, this player did okay, that player did okay. No, I'm sorry. For especially when you've got 5,000 fans traveling, like like to show that sort of performance, not even at a point where there were parts of the game where Hearts looked in the actual game itself, because for all game we didn't look interested at all, and to try and match, again, to say it, to try and match Motherwell's intensity was just far off it.
Yeah. No, definitely. And it's funny because Graham Alexander, Motherwell manager, his quotes after the game were, to paraphrase, he basically said, "I thought we dominated from start to finish. The intensity of the players was right up there. We didn't give them any space to play." And that's spot on. They did.
That's right.
And I think you're right in the sense that the players have to take some flack, because I still say that player for player, we've got a better team than Motherwell, which is why we're above them in the table. But yeah, look, everybody has their favorite players, and everybody tries to find positives in every player's performance because they're your favorite,
Of course.
And I get that. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you shouldn't say that, you should be critical of all of them, but I have to be honest, like you said, aside from Craig Gordon, not a single player got more than 6 out of 10 for me. And it's frustrating because we've seen them be so much better than that. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that I look at when I watched that game. It was like watching a different team.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's bizarre because that's where the frustration comes from for me. It's not because we've lost, because look, I'll give Motherwell all the credit in the world. They played that game perfectly. They knew what they were doing. They had a plan and it worked. We couldn't react to it. The players didn't know what to do. Is that down to Robbie? Maybe he should have changed it. We've already spoken about that. But the players that were on the pitch should have been good enough to at least get a goal, at least try and create something. But nothing was working.
It just wasn't there, was it? No.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. But I mean, that leads me on to a point that I was going to say. And I got some flack on social medias about this because I said that now perhaps I worded it slightly wrong, and maybe that's why I got some of the flack, so I'll hold my hands up and admit that, and I then changed it, so just because I reread it and I thought, yeah, that's probably fair enough, actually, because I said that Benny should be dropped for the next game.
Now sorry, but just before you can carry that on, just straight away, I know exactly what you actually mean. You know what I mean? I know that drop is a very strong word to actually use, but yeah. I do totally understand you though.
Yeah, when I put that, as I said, I was very, very irritated on Saturday night, having watched that game of football. And then on Sunday when I had to watch it again. But yeah, so I put the tweet out saying Benny should get dropped. And then obviously lots of people responded and said, don't be stupid, he's the first name on the team sheet and all this stuff, which I totally agree with.
Yeah.
And then I rephrased the tweet and said Benny should be rested.
Yeah.
And I think that is more accurate because
no, absolutely agree.
Benny was average at best at the weekend. He was overrun, but again, it's the Motherwell system that did it, so I'm not going to say Benny had a bad game by his high standards he's set.
Yeah.
Cammy Devlin had a poor game by his high standards he's set. A large portion of the reason for that is because Motherwell played them perfectly. But you could see that Benny was tiring, and this is a guy who, before he came to Hearts, has barely kicked a ball in 2 years. So to go from that to then playing every week, every minute for Hearts, it's going to catch up with him eventually.
Yeah.
We've been incredibly fortunate that he's not had an injury as of yet, and I'm not wishing an injury on him, and I hope it doesn't happen now that I've said it. But I feel like he needs to be rested. And we said it after the Aberdeen game. We talked about, getting a reaction after a defeat, and then we go and win the next game, and it's brilliant and everything's great again. We need a reaction against St Mirren, and we'll get one because we're at home.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
but this is what I'm saying. We'll do our St Mirren preview at the end, but we'll get a reaction because we're back at home.
Yeah.
we shouldn't need Benny in the team to be able to beat St Mirren at home. So for me, the next game is the perfect game to just say, right, you have a rest, you take a week off, and we'll put Herring in, or we can put McKenna in.
Yeah.
You know, it's we have options. Okay, we don't have another Benny that we can bring on and play, but we shouldn't need Benny to beat St Mirren. And I just think, as I say, I got a lot of flack for saying he should be dropped. And then having thought about it, I thought, yeah, that's a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, but I do totally agree with what you're saying in the sense that, look, I'm not saying that every single week the whole team should be rotated. No, but at certain points, like if you're going to play the same team for quite like a few months, like you're at some point going to run that team in like sort of to the ground in terms of fitness. And as you pointed out, like before Benny came here, like it was like 2 years since he actually like sort of was picked up football. And so I think in that respect, I think yeah, at certain parts of the season, like there should be a slight tweak in terms of the rotation itself, because how many seasons, and the first one that's kind of popping in to my head was Craig Levine's first season in charge when he took over from Cathro, when I'm sure it was around this point of the season where we were sitting top, everything was rosy, and then we got a bombard of injuries, and then it got really shit really quickly. So we're in a slightly different position now where we've got a lot of options now to, like you said, like if there is like, because like I'll say, I think it's been a few weeks that Benny has not been so much on a decline in terms of a performance aspect, but I think just in terms of as he looks knackered, like just getting more and more and more. And I think Haring or Kenneth are more than sort of capable. Yeah, they're free to different like sort of the players, but there are like sort of capable like as well of doing the job.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like obviously we've got St Mirren on Saturday, then we play Celtic on the Thursday at Parkhead. So do you want a tired Benny Beningame going to Parkhead and playing against Celtic?
Exactly.
Do you know that's I think you have to look at context as well. And I'll say who my preferred option would be when we do our St Mirren preview later on. But I think, like you say, Herring and McKenna are two perfect options to come in. Yes, Benny is one of the first names on the team sheet. I am not disputing that for a minute.
Not at all.
That man has been an absolute sensation since he's been at this club, and we are very, very lucky to have him.
You and me both.
If we keep playing him week after week after week, the intensity that we play with as well, most weeks, I'm discounting Motherwell because there was no intensity in that game at all, but they're going to burn out. And we've got a small squad. And I said it before, I can't remember if it was last week or the week prior, but I said my biggest concern about us right now is we do have a small squad. I appreciate that's what Robbie wants to do, but you run the risk of an injury really damaging you.
Yeah.
And Laurie even said it when we were talking about Gordon, Craig Gordon, we lost him.
Don't give me that fear again. It's taken me a whole week to get that off my back, mate, honestly.
But this is what I'm saying. It's
true, though. Yeah.
Again, I'm looking at the fixtures. So we've got St Mirren on Saturday, the 27th, then Celtic at Parkhead on the 2nd of December. Then we play Livingston on Sunday, the 5th. So that's Thursday to Sunday. So that's 2 games in a week. And then we play Rangers on the 12th of December. So there's some big games. But we've got, in between the big games, we've got St Mirren at Tynecastle and Livingston away. And they're 2 winnable games.
Absolutely.
So I think there needs to be an element of rotation. I'm not suggesting he completely rips up the team sheet and starts again, because we don't need to do that. And even like I said about the system, we don't need to change the system. For next week, we won't change the system because we're back at Tynecastle and we know that 3-4-3 works at Tynecastle.
Absolutely. So, in that sense, mate, do you have anything else to actually add from the game on Saturday, or do you want to move swiftly on to the preview?
I have one point that I'm just going to look
Throw
for.
it at me. Throw it
Just
at me, sir.
bear with me for a second because I saw something on Twitter and I liked it because I thought it was very, very interesting.
Okay.
So this is from I found it now. So this is, where are we? Right, so this is from a fellow Hearts podcast, Talking Tiny podcast, and they put a tweet out, and I thought it was fantastic, and it's a very interesting point. So they said, sincerely hope we are working hard on defending set pieces this week. In the last few games, we've conceded from one long throw versus Dundee, a corner versus St Johnstone, a corner versus Aberdeen, and a free kick versus Motherwell. We also conceded from a quick short corner versus Celtic in the cup.
Christ, I.
Now
So-
this is an interesting one, and it follows on. There's
It does,
there's a whole thread, and we can put that in the comment in the description of this because it's really, really interesting. Fair play to them for digging it all up, but I'm just paraphrasing. It says next opponents, St Mirren, have the third highest XG from set pieces and have underperformed so far this season in that metric. So
Interesting.
if the thing is, if set pieces are something that St Mirren are good at, and I'll be honest, I've not really paid much attention to St Mirren, because who would? No, I'm joking. That's a lie. That's a lie. I don't pay attention to St Mirren in general.
We don't pay attention to anyone.
Well, exactly.
Like apart from Hearts, anyway. So it's fine.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know how effective they are from set pieces, but it sounds as if they're not half bad at them. So if Robbie and the coaching team have not been down at the Orium lobbing balls into the box and getting defenders to defend them and just put a head on it, get it away, then it's a wasted week. Like, what is it with us in set pieces? I really don't understand it.
We are pish at them.
Yeah, I spoke about it, like both goals against Motherwell come from crosses. Okay, the first one was open play, the second one was a free kick. But the free kick in itself, the delivery wasn't even that good.
I know exactly, because again, as well, like, we're not particularly great at trying to defend set pieces, but in general as well, for as long as I can remember, we've not been particularly great at set pieces in general.
No, yeah, exactly. Aside
like,
from,
you know what I mean?
Aside from recently when Kingsley's decided to turn into Beckham and be able to score them all, but
yeah, but like,
that gets us out of jail.
Like, in terms of like, whether it's like an indirect free kick or from a corner, we're not necessarily great at trying to set up in terms of we look like we're going to score like a goal, because the only sort of when it is a dead ball, the only sort of time that I think that we've probably got a good chance of this scoring a goal is, like you just said, is when Kingsley steps up and I'm like, oh, this could be a goal. But like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's from like a corner, if it's from the flanks, like I'm not too particularly confident. So you're all right. I do hope that they've taken that into account.
The other thing that I wanted to mention just quickly before we went on to the St Mirren situation in the next game was the Taylor Moore second yellow card.
Yeah.
Now
I do have that on my notes as well. Like, so
now my issue, and this is a player that I do not like to criticize because I think on the whole he's a very, very good player. But I am going to lay the blame at Ginnelly for this, because Ginnelly has the ball on the touchline. And I've said this before about Ginnelly, and I'm a big fan of Josh Ginnelly. Before I start getting hate, I am a big fan of Ginnelly. But sometimes he can make the wrong decision, makes the wrong choice, and it doesn't work. And I'm not saying he has to make the right decision every single time, because he's going to make mistakes. Because he's a winger, his instinct is to take players on. I get that. In that situation, he loses the ball. He goes to take a player on. He loses it. The ball is then worked up the pitch. And I think Devlin perhaps gets a ball in, or gets a foot in, wins it back. But then it's a poor pass and we've lost it again. And it might have been Devlin, or it might have been Benny, or it might have been somebody else. I can't honestly remember. It's a bit of a blur right now. But we gave the ball back to Motherwell, but initially the first person that gives it back to them is Ginnelly, and that turns the play over. Motherwell got the park, and Taylor Moore, it's a very, very soft foul, very soft.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, if he doesn't make it, the Motherwell player has a chance to run at goal. And yes, we've got Scotland's #1 goalkeeper in goal, and I would back Craig Gordon to save that Motherwell chance if one came off. But Taylor Moore's not thinking that. Taylor Moore's thinking, right, this guy's not getting past me.
No.
He leans into him, and it is soft.
Yeah, like, I mean, at first looking at it, I genuinely, just from the TV angle, like, I genuinely thought it was a shoulder barge, like a normal, like, sort of shoulder barge. But looking at it more closely, again, I do agree that it was very soft. I think what the referee is maybe taking into account is that Moore has shoulder barged him into the back more than the actual shoulder. But again, even then, I've seen things like that that's just more like of a tactical sort of a tackle. But even then, I don't even think, it was a bad challenge at all. But at the same time, I mean, me personally, just to say on it, I don't think it was a yellow. But at that very same sort of time, the fact that Moore didn't protest about it, the Hearts team didn't actually get up, like, sort of to the ref to actually protest as well. They probably took that as a, like, okay. But even then, like, even if Moore didn't get sent off, I don't think that would have ultimately changed the outcome of the result itself.
No, definitely. And I think I agree with you that I don't think it was a yellow, but I think the reason he gets a yellow is because he's already got one.
I think you're right on that.
Probably all it was. But I have issue with the fact that not a single Hearts player chose to protest it, but that's just because I like to see that sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
Shows you that your teammates have got your back. But Taylor Moore, as you say, he walked off. He was happy. He just sort of, well, not happy.
No, not happy.
He was resigned. He was resigned to the fact that it was a yellow. He was resigned to the fact it was a yellow, and he knew he was going off.
Man.
So he didn't bother protesting. He was just like, I've had a bad game. I'll take it. I'll go off because I didn't. It was a bad tackle in that sense. But yeah, it like you say, I totally agree that whether he'd stayed on the park or not, it wouldn't have made a difference. And if we'd somehow managed to scrap a draw out of it, because it was only 1-0 at that point.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, it's frustrating, but we move on.
We move on indeed. And on that note, we do move on actually to our last part of the podcast, where we look forward to the next game, which you've pointed out, Alan, is at home to St Mirren. It's going to be an interesting one again. It's going to be one of those games where every Hearts fan is expecting a reaction from the result that we've just talked about. So, what are you thinking, Alan? And more specifically, if Halkett isn't back for this game, and the fact that we've got Taylor Moore out on a suspension now, what do we do? What do we do? Because obviously, we've not necessarily got another sort of well-known central defender in our squad. So what do you think? Do we revert back to a 4, or do you think, for example, maybe Haring could maybe do that role? As such, maybe, possibly.
The other option is we bring back the forgotten man, Andy Halliday, to play left wing back and shuffle Alex Cochrane into the back 3.
And who's done it before? Yeah, and who would you put in the centre?
Well, you'd have Suter and you'd have Kingsley.
Okay, fair enough.
So that would be worst case.
Okay,
but
right, fair enough.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's actually quite an interesting one, because I hadn't thought of that. You're absolutely right. I was thinking if Taylor Moore suspended, and
I have a good idea once every 9th, was it the podcast analyst? So thank you very much. I will take that in your good graces, my friend. But yeah, I mean, just as a whole, that as well, and we just sort of talked about it, as well. what do you change? Do you bring Boyce back in to kind of bring that more sort of that more upper strength, like in terms of the striker role? Do you take out Benny? What would you do if you were in Robbie's shoes, mate?
Well, I said this as well. I don't think you'll need to make massive changes.
No.
There are people that I've seen on social medias, and it's not, this is the social media following of Hearts is a very, very small percentage of the overall Hearts support. But because you're in that world and you read all the comments and you think that's what every Hearts fan thinks. But it's important to remember as well, it's a very small, it's basically under a microscope of the Hearts supporters. And social media's after Hearts lose is absolutely toxic, as you've mentioned before, about, people wanting Robbie sacked, people wanting all the players dropped and everybody else chopped and changed. And it won't change the system. The system
No. I don't want it to change either. So
we'll play 3-4-3. I reckon he'll go with, well, obviously Gordon in goal, because that's not going to change.
Nope.
I think a back three, assuming Halkett is fit. But again, I'm going to assume that he is.
Right.
Pray that he is.
Okay.
My lineup prediction is based off Halkett being fit.
Yeah.
So I would go Kingsley, Suter, Halkett, or Kingsley, Halkett, Suter on the right of the three, Halkett in the middle. I would go with Michael Smith at right back. I'd go with Alex Cochrane at left back.
Of course.
The midfield two, I'm going to come back to. I would go up front. No, purely because I think the front three is easier to say.
Okay. Well, I mean, this will be interesting in itself as well, because of course, like for the Dundee United game, that front three looked on fire, but then for last week's game, they just looked nowhere to be seen. So what would you do in this instance?
So my front three would be, I'm going to bring Boyce back.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm going to play Barry Mackay.
Yes.
And I'm going to play Ben Woodburn.
Good.
But
that's my same sort of thoughts on that, man.
But equally, Ben Woodburn was very average. Again, they were all average against Motherwell. He's found a bit of form with the double against Dundee United. So I hope that we stick with him. Ginnelly, for me, against Motherwell, was not at it. He was not at it. And when you've got someone like Barry Mackay, who was unlucky not to play against Motherwell, to bring in, I'd be bringing him in. Bring him back in, put Boyce up front again. And like I said, it doesn't matter who we play. We should be able to beat St Mirren at Tynecastle, let's be honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
The midfield two, now this is what I would go with, and I'd be really interested to see what other people think and how other people would suspect it to be. So I'll say my thoughts and you can take it from there. But
of course,
my midfield two would be Cammy Devlin, because I don't think he needs rested yet.
No. I agree with that.
He's the Energizer Bunny on crack, that man. Like he's on a different level, right?
Good as hell. If you are listening,
advertising campaign, right there.
Advertising campaign. Cammy Devlin batteries on crack.
He is, right? So
I totally agree with you, but
it's true, right? It's true. So you've got Cammy Devlin, and I would play Aaron Mechaniff.
Yes.
Now, my reasoning for that is, if St Mirren, again, this is me being totally ignorant to St Mirren, and I apologise for that, and I will do some homework on St Mirren.
Don't apologise for anything, sir. Don't apologise for anything.
If St Mirren have any sense about them, they will look at what Dundee did when they came to Tynecastle, and they'll go, all right, that's how you get something when you go there. You sit in, you defend, and you take your chance when you get one, because you will get one. We have to stop that.
Yeah.
We have to have a way of breaking that down. And I said it against Dundee that we needed more drive from the midfield. Benny and Devlin are two fantastic midfielders. They are great players to have, but they're ball winners. When they get forward, there is that little bit of uncertainty about what they do next. I'm not saying Aaron McKenniff is the next best thing. He's, the best player in the league, whatever. He's not. He's far from it. But we've seen that he can drive forward from midfield. And he's a forward-thinking midfielder. And he's the sort that perhaps we need to break down these teams that are going to sit back and say, well, okay, if you want to score a goal, you've got to break through us. And like I said earlier, we should not need a midfield two of Cammy Devlin and Benny Beningame to beat St Mirren.
Absolutely. I agree with that, man. And plus, he is, just to add to that, he is the kind of midfielder that looks more likely to score as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, you could use you've got a point to prove. You're given a chance in the team. He did it in the Dundee United game when he came off the bench, scored a cracking goal.
He did.
So if he gets a start against St Mirren, he'll be going, right, okay, this is another chance to try and, get a foot in the door ahead of a trip to Parkhead. I'm not saying we start him at Parkhead.
No, but like, you know what I mean?
But,
yeah.
Get another idea in the manager's head. And I think that would be what I would go with. So, as I say, I don't expect wholesale changes. And even in that lineup that I've given you, I think there's only 2 or 3 changes.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So I could do with that. I could deal with that.
Yeah, and just to kind of echo what you actually said, I don't really need to say anything on what I feel because you've literally just nailed everything that I was thinking. Yeah, no, you're right. I don't think we need to make wholesale sort of changes. I think, the people that you would personally drop as well, I do agree with. But again, I don't think whenever a Hearts player does get dropped, I don't think you should necessarily take that as a bad thing. It's just the fact that you've got a point to actually prove. And then, again, we have said it constantly throughout this season so far that it's not because, we're dropping them because, they've got a point to prove, but it's quality for quality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So...
Yeah, absolutely.
So that doesn't really, sort of bother me in that respect. So, yeah, I would go with the lineup that you have chosen, Alan. Of course, on the actual thought that Halkett is fit. Please be fit, son. So, and on this last note, head-to-head time. Woo! So, what are your predictions for this weekend's match against St Mirren, mate?
I'm going Hearts 3, St Mirren now.
Ooh, interesting. I like it.
I'm going for a comfortable afternoon at Tynecastle because it should be.
I like
3-1. 3-0. Sorry, I said 3-1. 3-0.
3-0. First time I'm ever going to actually do this. I'm going to put my not negative hat on, but there's something about this game that obviously I want a reaction. I expect a win. However, there's just something about it and the time of the season that we're actually at. There's just something about it for me personally. So with that, I'm going to go for a horrible 0-0 draw. I don't know why I think that, but there's just something about it and something inside me that feels like maybe Robbie won't get the reaction that we hope for. And
no, I see your point.
I don't know why I think that, and I know that's being such a negative arsehole, but I did again. It's just my sort of thing. But we'll see what happens though on Saturday, mate. So a 3-0 win for Alan and a 0-0 draw from myself. So I think on that note, we can end on the 30th episode of the Since I Was Young podcast. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you are a fan of the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian news, chats and reviews, please think about subscribing. And as Alan has done, smash that like button because it is always appreciated, guys. And as always as well, if you want to check out our socials as well on screen, all will be in the description, as well as our email as well that is on screen. And if you want to get in contact with either myself or Alan, you can. All of our Twitter links as well will be in the description as always as well. So Alan, thank you very much for joining me, mate, and I just hope that I am wrong, that it will not be a 0-0 draw. Please don't let it be.
Can I just point out that if it's a Hearts win, I'll overtake you on our head-to-head? Can I point that out right now?
Yeah, I do.
In fact, well, unless we win 3-0. If we win 3-0, I'll overtake you. But if it's a win, then it'd be level.
You just like to kick a man when he's down, don't you, mate? So thank you for that.
I can at the very least bring it level, so that would be good. That would be good.
Well, mate, just for the change. Just for a change, it would be nice. Just like, I wouldn't even care, like, if you got 10 points on the fucking board. Just a change would be so nice. So,
Well, we'll see.
we shall see. But yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. You take care. Bye for now.